Hey guys, today's story is a bit of a depressing one. So this all happened fairly recently, and I have to admit, I'm still not exactly over it. I've only just started to come to terms with everything, but I want to share just to get some of the feelings out. This has a lot of backstory to it, so I apologize ahead of time. The group in question started off as 4 people: the DM, 2 of my high school friends, and myself. And we had known each other since grade 11. So we knew each other for 4 years when the D&D group finally started in 2015. We did a campaign in Dungeon World that lasted about a year. Then the DM and one of my other friends went off to university, and we split up for what was effectively a school year. One friend moved on to do his own thing, but the 3 of us kept in touch and continued to hang out and do non-RPG stuff. And I want to make it clear that we were friends before any D&D, and we remained friends even when there wasn't a campaign going on. And eventually, the DM finished with uni and expressed interest in getting us started in another campaign. This time in 5e. The other friend and I were interested, and I spoke about it with a friend that I had met in college, who was also interested in playing. Eventually, the DM, who I'll call Rick, my high school friend, who I'll call Dale, the college friend, who I'll call Carl, and myself started the second campaign in summer of 2017. Carl had invited his girlfriend Carol not too long after to make us a group of 4. Campaign number 2 was a roaring success. It lasted almost 2 years from what I remember, and it ended up with us cleansing the land of an invading evil, and basically becoming immortal. Outside of the campaign, we'd all hang out together too. We continued my group's New Year's party traditions. We went to movies and stuff, and generally acted like a group of friends. Carol DM'd us a Halloween one-shot, and I DM'd us a Christmas special. Life was good. And 2019 brought us to the start of campaign number 3. By this point, I had noticed that we weren't hanging out outside of D&D much anymore, and I brought it up with everyone. But I was assured that, hey, we're still meeting once a week for 5+ hours. That's probably more than most friend groups manage to do. I wasn't entirely convinced, but I moved on. I think my mistake from this point was assuming that we were all still good friends. And it seems that, with hindsight, that we sort of evolved into just being a D&D group, and I was the last one to catch on. Either way, campaign number 3 brought a bit more friction into the group. We were playing an evil campaign where we started out as pirates, and we had gotten into arguments sometimes about how evil was. I admit again here, I tended to make my characters a bit too good compared to everyone else, and although I argue that I could have different opinions and still travel with a party as long as we all had the same goal, eventually one of my characters was retired for being too good, and the remainder were mostly killed by party members. And this brings us to 2020, and a bit more backstory on what was happening at the time. In 2015, my mother and I moved in with my grandmother, who started having health issues, and needed help being looked after. She started developing dementia not too long after, and although, thank goodness, it never got to the point that she forgot our names, by 2020 she had declined very noticeably, and was beginning to need physical help, adult diapers, the whole shebang. I won't go into too much detail, but my mother, in order to cope, threw herself into conspiracy theories and started talking about moving out to a compound filled with people with guns and anti-government beliefs. So there was a bit of stress in my life at that point. I was also working 2 jobs at the time, which again, I apologize, but they will be important later. By late 2019, D&D was basically my escape from everything. It was the one time a week I wasn't working or dealing with 2 very challenging family members, and my final and best character had managed to hit the exact sweet spot of evil to get along with the party, decent enough for me to be comfortable playing with him, and exciting to play. I had a hidden backstory with a secret wife and kid that Rick had promised to do something cool with. I was good in combat, and I got along with the party. Everything was fine. In 2020, because of the lockdown, we moved our sessions to Roll20, which I still despise this day. But it's the safer method, so whatever. I lost the in-person interactions with my friends, and the group chat we were in was dead in the day-to-day, until the game days happened. But we were still technically together, and right at the start of the lockdown, I was lucky enough to get a few months off job number 1 that kept me repeatedly in close contact with people, and I signed a contract with job number 2 that essentially paid me to stay at home, but with the expectation that I may have to leave and stay away for an extended period of time, which would absolutely interfere with D&D. Problem being, I have no idea when I'm going to have to move, so I'm a bit in a limbo, but I have 2 seniors at home, so I want to do what's best for everyone's health. And finally, onto the incident. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get here, but I want to try and give a full picture of what has been happening up to this point. In our 3rd session online, my character had died. And while ultimately this death was my fault, part of my backstory was about trying to achieve a glorious death in battle, which my character had felt was denied to him. And I had gotten attached to the party and was presented with a situation where I thought I was defending them from unwinnable odds, and elected to fight to the death. But this was all predicated on me missing a perception check, on purpose, because I was screwing around with another party member. And neither of us had realized that the situation was getting dire. My fault, no argument. But with that being said, my character arc, so far, had been taking a redeeming swing, as I had taken the cabin boy under my wing as a surrogate son, and I was beginning to learn to appreciate the life that I had built. I had also made an unknown deal with the devil not long before this, and out of character, I kind of expected that he wouldn't want his investment wasted so fast. But instead, I died. And here's where I screwed up again. I had assumed, poorly I might add, that since a previous character had died once in campaign number 2 and been resurrected in the same session, and that since I had already played a homebrew undead character previously in campaign number 3, that I might be able to bring this character back as well to continue his story. Rick, however, told me that that wasn't possible in this campaign, and instead of making a new character, I tried to plead my case a little bit too much for my dead one. As a result of this, with the pressure of my life outside of D&D, and not knowing if I would get called away to work any day, and my attachment to my character, I told my friends that I was going to take a break from D&D for a while, but I wanted to still keep in touch. And this was a mistake. As soon as I stopped playing, I became persona non grata, and I was lucky to even get a sentence or 2 in response to anything that I said in the group chat. And while Carl kept inviting me to the Discord calls they would have on Saturday nights, I'd only get to talk to everyone for about 10 minutes before Rick would kick me. And I said that if I was interrupting D&D, we could schedule another night in the week to have a half-hour Discord call to keep up. But no dice. I didn't exist anymore to my friends of 9 and 3 years. Rick, who I had known for 9 years, was the first to start ghosting me. I sent him an apology after a while for my begging, but he never said anything back, even though I heard from Dale that Rick had spoken to him about it. And in all of my interactions with these people, I thought they were my closest friends. But if I didn't start the conversation, no one would say anything to me. Eventually, I decided to wait it out and see what would happen. And for the entire month of May 2020, nobody said a word to me. Since I didn't reach out, they didn't bother to contact me at all. I had trouble sleeping, I drank pretty much every day, and at night I just want to kill myself to get it over with. Eventually, in June, I contacted them and I said that I wasn't going to be in touch with them at all anymore. Dale sounded apologetic, but when I gave him another chance, he never bothered to reach out again. Carol called me a jerk and a bad friend and said that she was cutting me off. Carl, the guy I introduced everyone else to, just went dead quiet and never bothered talking to me again. And then, in late June, my grandmother died. The only people I talked to about it were my insane mother, my aunt, who I barely ever see, and later, my therapist. I still haven't grieved properly, because the whole time I was caught up in these feelings about being ditched by the people I cared about the most. Anyway, that's it. Sorry to drop all of this, but it at least felt a little cathartic to write. Well, guys, sometimes friendships just end. That's the sad truth of things. But that doesn't mean the way OP's friends ditched him was right. But in any case, that's the end of the video. Stay safe, stay sane, and have a good one.